So welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Armstrong and I am the Joint Interim Director and Training and Development Manager for Respect Me, Scotland's anti-bullying service. We're absolutely delighted to have you with us this evening for our very first ever Changemaker series, our inaugural event, which obviously today will be focusing on body image, appearance and bullying. We've got up until 6 o'clock together this evening, and first of all I just want to give you an overview of the Changemaker series and what it's all about. This particular theme this year, 2023, is spotlighting inclusion and diversity, and our overarching aim with the Changemaker series is that we make that connection between effective inclusion and diversity work and preventing bullying behaviour. So I'm going to just hand over to Claire now, who will just go through some housekeeping items, and then I'll come back and share my presentation with you and get started.
Thanks, Lisa. Welcome everybody. I'm Claire Hunter, and I've been helping Respect Me with the organisation of today's event. Please note that the session will be recorded. All attendees, as you know, who have entered are muted and cameras disabled. Please ensure that when you have your name displayed, it is the name that you registered with, no abbreviations, just so that we can help with the admission process. We'd like to remind everyone that Respect Me operates a safe place in today's webinar. We kindly invite all attendees to be respectful towards each other. Respect Me reserves the right to remove anyone who is disrespectful. If you've been affected by bullying, we understand that it can be triggering. Please feel free to leave the session and take a break if you need to. Organisations such as Parent Line or Samaritans can offer support if required. The chat box will give attendees the opportunity to message myself if you have any technical issues. As you're aware, Respect Me put out a request for questions in advance to allow collation of the most relevant and frequently asked. There will not, therefore, be an opportunity to ask direct questions via the chat box today. However, for audience participation, we will be using Slido to do quick polls with you in real time. You can use your laptop to do this or a smartphone. Please have this ready and I'll run through a little demonstration with you shortly. Zoom offers closed captioning and live transcription should you require this. Once you have joined the event, you can access this by clicking the CC Live Transcript link and then click Show Subtitles or View Full Transcript. A survey link will be posted in the chat box at the end of the event, and we'd really appreciate you completing this as you leave the session so we can pass on the findings to our funding and managing partners. The responses also help with producing future sessions. The survey link will also be emailed to you after the event should you miss it as you leave. This is the tool that we're going to be using today, and I'll just run through one question with you just to get you to get used to it. You can either scan the QR code with your phone if you're using a phone, or if you're using another tab on your laptop, you can put into the search the bar at the top, slido.com. It will ask you for a number. If you could put in 1349567. Thank you. Just answer away, that would be great. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic to see all the results coming in.
Quite a varied Hertfordshire there.
Welcome.
We'll just give that another, it'll still keep taking results. We might just want you to, it will just take them in the background as Lisa's speaking. So that's great. Thank you very much. I will now stop sharing and pass back to Lisa. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Claire. As I said before, welcome everybody. We are absolutely delighted to be joined today by a range of different speakers who I will introduce you to very shortly. But I'd like to start off my welcome by really setting out why today's event is so important. It's really a very important national conversation because children and young people have told us that they are experiencing bullying related to aspects of their identity and their appearance, and that it is having an impact on their daily lives. And as we know, all bullying can have a range of different health and well-being impacts. And so it's very, very important that we as adults listen to what children and young people are telling us about their experiences of appearance-related bullying and what we as adults can do to support and help them with that. We know that these impacts can last right into adulthood, and some of our speakers today will be sharing some of their own work and experiences of what those impacts can be. It's been very important as well for Respect Me in the development of this series to be engaging with children and young people and to listen to what they've had to say. Our campaign, our 2-year campaign this year and into next is Listen Up, Respect Our Rights. It's been informed by our own youth action group, and we know how important it is for children and young people that we hear what they're saying. And that's why we're delighted today to be joined by a range of youth champions and also to see the voices of young people very much woven through what we're going to share with you today. So I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, before we get started and we hear from our speakers, a huge thank you to Glasgow Education Service for partnering with Respect Me and giving us unique access to over 300 young people through their Glasgow Youth Forums. We met with those young people in December and we had roundtable discussions, and I'm going to share some of the findings about their experiences and opinions on appearance-related bullying with you very shortly. This process of focus groups and hearing those voices was also mirrored with our with parents and carers from Glasgow City parent group, and I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Leanne Maguire, who is from Glasgow City parent group, and she'll be available in the Q&A session to take a question as well. So our ambition is that by Respect Me hosting this event today, that we act as a host and a platform for you to hear, listen, learn from the range of eminent speakers that we have with us today, people that are doing very much cutting edge, leading work across Scotland in the area of body image, body acceptance and appearance and bullying. And so today is not just about learning and listening, but it's also about taking action. And we very much hope that this will be an important legacy of the Change Maker series. So as we go through and as we listen to the speakers this evening, I really would encourage you to be noting down any points that inspire you, that make you think this is something that I can do in my own setting, so that we're turning our learning into actual action. And we really do owe it for Scotland's children and young people that we do whatever we can in our role as adults to protect their rights, to make sure that every child growing up in Scotland is protected from appearance-related bullying, so that they feel included, safe and respected, whatever their unique difference is. So without further ado, I would like to just acknowledge the range of work that has gone into making today's event possible. Respect Me have been working tirelessly over the last few weeks and months. In particular, Safia Rahman, our training officer, has been pulling together a lot of different strands of work. And you'll see on the screen today the number of partners that we've engaged with, and we're absolutely delighted that they're with us this evening to share their work. So I'd like to, I guess, introduce you to the youth facilitators that we met back in December that I mentioned before I share some of those findings from those roundtable discussions about appearance, body image and bullying. So as you'll see on the screen, these were the youth facilitators that we kindly were given access to through Glasgow Education Service. They led the roundtable discussions as youth facilitators, and they did an absolutely fantastic job of hearing those discussions and noting down all the very valuable points that I'm going to share with you tonight. So we asked a range of different questions as part of our initial focus groups with young people about their experiences of appearance and related to bullying. And the first question that we asked was, what have you seen someone be bullied for about their appearance? And you can see here just a small word cloud that encapsulates some of the issues that children and young people told us about in terms of their features and aspects about who they are and their appearance. So things like, you can see on the screen, the sheer variation in the kinds of things that they were experiencing bullying for related to their appearance, or they had witnessed happening to other people. So things like weight, height, teeth, skin, clothes, race, ear size, smell, eyebrows. You can see it all there. It's a huge list, and it really does show just the amount of different reasons that children are experiencing bullying for related to their appearance. And you can see here also how appearance-related bullying intersects with other protected characteristics such as disability and race and ethnicity and religion. We also asked the young people about the types of appearance-related bullying that they had experienced or witnessed, and unfortunately it makes for really quite stark and sobering reading. They told us that they had seen lots of different types of behaviour, things like blackmailing, online bullying, kicking, punching, physical acts, pulling hair, cutting people's hair, death, even as far as extreme things like death threats and theft. So again, a huge variation of different behaviours that are playing out that children and young people are experiencing. And then finally, we wanted to find out how these behaviours were actually impacting on children and young people's lives. And again, a really sobering slide that we see here. So the children that we consulted with were both primary and secondary ages, and we brought all of those different experiences into this one place. So again, a spectrum of different impacts that we can see, from things like kind of worry, feeling sad, crying, feeling lonely, up to much more serious impacts like suicidal thoughts, much more serious impacts. So again, we need to acknowledge that there's a spectrum of impacts here, and just the variation in terms of how these behaviours are affecting children's health and well-being. So I thought it was important for us as Respect Me to set this in context and to really share why tonight is important, because these behaviours and impacts are daily affecting children and young people across Scotland in their schools and communities. So I would, at this point, I'm really excited to be welcoming the range of different speakers we have with us today on our session. We have Julie Cameron, who's Associate Director of Mental Health Foundation, and she was also the chair of the Scottish Government Advisory Group on Good Body Image. So welcome, Julie. We've also got Petya Eckler, who's Senior Lecturer in Journalism, Health and Communication at the University of Strathclyde. Welcome, Petya. We've also got Grace McCabe, who's Lead Volunteer for Speak Out at Girl Guiding Scotland. We also have Con Lafferty, who is Neon Manager, Harm Reduction Unit for NHS Lothian, and Susan Ross, who's Head of Education and Learning at Changing Faces, and she's joined by Kaylin McLaughlin, who is a youth campaigner at Changing Faces. So a warm welcome, everyone. We couldn't have done tonight without you, and so without further ado, I would like to pass over to Julie Cameron, who's going to share her presentation with us just now.
Great, thanks, Lisa. I'm just going to ask Claire if you can let me screen share. That would be fab, and then I'll be able to do that. Perfect, here we are. So if everyone could just let me know, or certainly that you can see that okay.
Yeah, we can see that. Thanks, Julie.
Perfect. Right, okay. So everyone, I'm Julie Cameron. As Lisa said, I'm the Associate Director with the Mental Health Foundation. And a few years ago, I was asked and approached by the Scottish Government to chair the Scottish Government Advisory Group on Good Body Image. And I'm going to just today really focus on taking you through the work of that group and where we got to in terms of some of our recommendations. And I'm going to focus on quite specifically some of the issues that came out that very much align to the theme of today, which is about appearance-based bullying. So that's the plan. Hopefully that all looks okay for you. So in terms of who we are within the Mental Health Foundation, for anyone that doesn't know. So we're a public mental health organisation. Our vision is for a world with good mental health for all, not just for some. And our mission is to help people understand, protect and sustain their mental health. The type of work that we do is we do research, we gather community voices so that we can really work that across policy work, programmatic work, research, and ultimately help inform essentially a world where we're more understanding and able to improve our mental health. So that's where we are, and that's the type of work that we do. So I'll take you through, I'll just want to take you through the kind of process, if you like, for establishing the advisory group. So this was pre-pandemic, actually. The report landed just literally the day of when we went down into lockdown. But I want to just let you know, so it was myself that was co-chair along with Katie Reid, and Katie was at that point a beat ambassador for the charity around eating disorders. Between myself and Katie, we gathered together a whole range of different people who sat on a group, and I'm pleased to say some of them here today. Petra and Con are here today, which Con contributed, but Petra was part of the group. And for 6 months we met, and it was quite intensive, I have to say. So we met over a period of 6 months, and we met every month for a minimum of half a day, sometimes a day, to really start drilling through the issues of what was emerging. And in terms of the type of information that we looked at a whole swathe of information, as well as engaging with people directly. So we reviewed evidence and previous reports, of which there has been significant numbers, which seem to be coming quite frequently to the same conclusions that we came to around what has to change in order for us to, as a society, create the environment where good body image can thrive. So we engaged with a whole range of different stakeholders and young people. That included Scottish Government teams, including the diet and healthy weight team, the team there that is responsible for sexual health and relationship education, and for mental health and wellbeing education. We engaged and spoke to different social media influencers, people behind the body positive movement in Scotland who are really leading lights around that. We engaged with Changing Faces, as I say, Con, who was able to bring a kind of male perspective around the work that he was doing at that point with the Lothian Steroid Clinic. We engaged with teachers and educationalists and young people themselves, importantly, young people themselves. And we were really quite interested in engaging with young people whom I guess had different diverse experiences of this to really ensure that those sometimes unheard voices were at the fore of our thinking when we were coming to the development of our recommendations. And where that led us to is we published a report, and that report had 9 recommendations, and it crossed many different areas of life. And I know that I can put in the chat, if that's helpful, where you'll be able to find that report if people want to read that in more depth. So you'll be able to see that. So at this point, and this was actually the starting point for the advisory group too, and it was, why is this important? Why are we having a focus on body image? And I guess where we came to was because time and time again, young people are telling us that this is important, that this impacts on their lives significantly. And you can see some of the stats here that I've got, but essentially there's a swathe of reports out there that often come to the same conclusion. This is having a significant impact on young people's lives. And not only is it having an impact in terms of how young people feel about themselves, but actually it's also having an impact on young people's behaviours. So we know that body image isn't in and of itself a mental health problem, but we do know that it's closely associated with some significant mental health problems and some diagnoses like body dysmorphic disorder and different types of eating disorders. But even beyond that, actually it has a significant impact on mental health and well-being. And some of the behaviours that young people were telling us that they were doing as a result of the various different pressures that they feel around their body image were things like actually withdrawing from healthy behaviours. So not taking part in physical activity, not taking part in different sports and activities because they were so conscious about their bodies and perhaps feeling pressure that it wasn't matching the ideal that society seems to tell us that we need to match. And we also know that how you feel about your body and having dissatisfaction about your body can lead to low self-esteem, symptoms of anxiety and depression, as well as those disordered eatings and eating disorders that I mentioned before. So it's important because, and it's also important, I guess, to frame it in terms of today, is that the way that we're told our bodies should look frames some stereotypes, I guess, that go out there. And we know that actually the reality is that all of us look different and all of us have different capabilities around our bodies. But by having this drip, drip, drip emphasis on what this idealized body image should look like, it does impact on how people interact with us. And that includes bullying. And I'll come back to that in a minute. And I guess when I come back to that, it's important for us to think through, so what does impact on how you think and feel about your body? And that was the definition that we gave to body image. So there's a whole swathe of things that influence how we feel about our bodies and how we think about our bodies. So I'm just going to pick up these for a minute here. So we know that it is an influence between media, and that includes social media, how our family and friends relate to us about how we look, but also how they talk about how they look and others look, pressure from peers, and then of course bullying. In our society, there's a continual pressure for us to live up to this ideal body type. And the reality is that the majority of us don't look like how that idealized image is presented. We are different from how it is, but we know that because it's so continual and comes at us from so many different angles, that often that can become very internalized. So actually we can start to think a level of shame around, well, okay, what does this say about me if I'm not able to look like that? Does that mean that I'm not going to be successful? Because actually I'm seem to be told time and time again that if you look a particular way, that will lead to success and happiness. We know that's not true. Of course, that's not true. How success and happiness tends to be on the quality of the relationships and the networks that we have around us, not how we look, but yet that's what society often tells us. So we know that there's lots of shame attached to that. And actually that pressure and what that idealized body image should be, or what society tells us it should be, actually looks and feels different depending on your gender and other protected characteristics. So for an awful long time, it was largely young women that experienced these levels of pressure, but increasingly we can see it in young men too, and actually people of all ages. In terms of body image, we know that using social media has been linked to feeling less satisfied with your body. And again, it's really important for us to reflect on, well, why is that? And now others may pick up on this in a bit more detail today, but one of the things that seems to be coming through is about when you're on social media, there is generally ongoing comparison that takes place within that space, about kind of saying, oh my goodness, now they look like this, I look like that. But also it goes beyond that. There's competition to start looking a certain way and to start to present your life in a certain way. And if you don't match that, then I think that that's where some of these problems around teasing and bullying can start to come in, and really thinking that through in terms of if that's the norm that young people are told, then anyone outside that norm can start to become a target for bullying. And that's where some of the problems are starting to lie. One of the other things that came out really strongly in terms of what we explored was around what peers and family say. And to me, I thought this was really interesting when you look at the Respect Me's definition of bullying, and that actually intent needn't be there. But it's about the impact that it has on the individual in terms of the words and the actions of others towards us. And so many of the young people in the research that we looked at was telling us that actually when you hear your friend perhaps continually criticizing people for not looking another way, even if they're not directing at you, that can impact on you. Or if they do start to direct that towards you because you perhaps don't fit the mold of what the idealized body is meant to be like and what the body image is meant to be like, then actually that starts to have a particular impact on you. What parents say, how our parents model, how they feel about their own bodies, but how they talk about others, all of this has an impact, and that came out incredibly strongly amongst the young people about some of those unintentional impacts about the words that people say, and how actually that can be felt as a criticism about you, even if that's not the intent. And that very closely aligns to body shaming. And the messages that we get across society about if you're overweight in particular, that's somehow being your fault, and that all of the connotations that come with that about, oh, that means you're lazy, that means you're this, that means you can't do that. And actually just how important it is as a society for us to start to break down some of these myths, and move away from the view that actually in any way body shaming is helpful. It doesn't motivate people, it demotivates people, and that's really important. And of course, we know that there's transitional points across the lifetime where you will be more aware of your body and its capabilities either lessening or changing, and that can have an impact on how you feel. And that's obviously key points as well, where we know that bullying can be more prominent around puberty, around these key points in life when actually differences are more pronounced across how everyone looks just because of our different developmental times. So very quickly, I'm going to fly through some of the recommendations. The first recommendation that we made was around a national campaign, and this was about challenging that narrative around what the body about these drip messages around what a body ideal should look like. So we felt that this was really important to say, when you do this, this is how it makes me feel, and really ensure that young people are at the fore of that. Really starting to challenge body shaming and blaming people over their size, and that is bullying. That there's no two ways about that. That is bullying. That's how it's about the impact that words have on people's lives. So it's really important that we start to have specific strategies so that we can equip people, even those who aren't doing it directly, to be able to intervene and say, that's not okay for you to say that to them. So these are really important messages. We know that there needs to be better information for parents and carers, so that some of the words that they say inadvertently, even talking about themselves, quite often being self-critical about their own bodies, actually recognizing the impact that has, or the teasing that might take place in families that might seem to be quite light-hearted, actually can have a massive impact on people feel about their body image, and can be construed as bullying actually. So it's really important that we start to inform parents and carers on how to be better role models around that, but without kind of parent bashing, because I think nobody wants that. It's about taking people on a journey. And the final thing is just around how we can ensure that education is really key, so that young people know how they can how we can start to create a kinder society, actually, where we're more tolerant of difference, and where essentially what Respect to Me is all about, where we're more respectful for one another. And I'm going to leave it there, because I know I've only got 10 minutes and I think I've probably ran on. So thanks, everyone. I hope that certainly sets the scene in terms of what we're looking at today.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant, and I think you've set the scene in a really fantastic way. You've touched on so many points, and I think Petya probably is going to pick up in her presentation next around about the social media aspect of negative body imaging. But I think you've really made the point about the importance of involving everybody in these conversations, parents, carers, us as educators, but also other young people as well, bringing them along that journey. And just that point about challenging those norms, and how we do that through conversation and activities. You've absolutely inspired Respect Me's own calls to action that we'll share at the end. And we would definitely will be signposting the report and all the recommendations that came out of that very, very important piece of working group work. So thank you, Julie. And I know you'll be hanging on to for the Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to invite now Petya Ekler. Petya is Senior Lecturer in Journalism, Health and Communication at the University of Strathclyde. So over to you, Petya.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Okay, so I'll continue something that Julie already started on, speaking about the role of social media and media more broadly for body confidence. And I'll tell you in a minute how that relates to bullying. I found, so a recent pre-pandemic report was surveying young people in the UK and found that, and was asking, and what particularly struck me in that report was actually of where this bullying was happening. And as you can see, the majority of bullying, young people said, still happens the traditional way, mostly in person. So you can see here that 87% of young people who had been bullied about their appearance experienced that verbally. And for 80% of them, that happened in school or in college. And I say only, but only is not in a way to diminish what's happening online. But of the only 26% of those young people had been bullied about their appearance online through cyberbullying. However, and those are pre-pandemic numbers, which the most logical question is what's happened since. I have been able to find one study from Canada, which said that during the pandemic, actually the levels of bullying dropped. Maybe because there was no school to go to, who knows? But that would be something actually to really, it would be interesting to look into this further in more detail in the future. But the fact that only 26% of, and not 87 or 70 or 60% of these young people had experiences of cyberbullying doesn't in any way diminish the role of social media and media. And so in fact, I see the role of social media related to bullying in this broader context, very similar to what Julie was talking about, that social media really plays a role in setting the tone for beauty standards among young people, for defining what kind of appearance is deemed acceptable, and for defining what isn't deemed acceptable, and as a consequence of that, allowing really bullying to be targeted at certain physical characteristics. So currently the standards of beauty that circulate in social media, in traditional media, are really very narrow and favor bodies that are slim and without visible differences. So even though not everybody, the majority of young people may not necessarily be experiencing that bullying on social media. Social media, I see it as a very important player in this, as creating really the landscape which could be contributing to bullying regardless of where that happens. And so what social media could be doing really here is providing a space where beauty can be redefined through a broader spectrum of appearances, including appearances that fall outside of these traditional societal ideas. And one very popular way of doing this could be through including images of all kinds of bodies, larger bodies, bodies with visible differences, bodies that are not augmented either through filters or through makeup or other ways. And so that research has shown that to an extent could be remedying some of the ill effects of of appearance and the narrowly defined appearance roles that so far we've dealt with. However, it's not really that straightforward. This relationship is not that straightforward, that the moment we start showing different size bodies and everything will magically be solved, but it's an important step forward, and research on this matter is still continuing on these questions. Further, young people themselves kind of touched in that survey that I already mentioned on the role of social media by saying that one possible solution to this problem of bullying is education or talking about body confidence and education on diversity, body diversity and body confidence. So really, social media and media in general could be one way in which young people's body confidence and feelings about, the wide diversity of appearances in our society can be strengthened. And so I wanted to share really for the rest of my 3 minutes remaining, some well-established resources that all of you can use to start looking further into this issue, to use the media in a positive way to build confidence among young people. Some of these resources are online as well as on social media. such as the body image movement, which started in Australia a few years back, and currently it also includes kids. So you can see here the website, and really tries to encourage kids to be more accepting of different body types and to be proud of the bodies they have. Similar initiatives have been done closer to home as well with the Be Real campaign for body confidence. So you can see here the website, some snapshots from Instagram and the Instagram handle. Another example of, online resources, media resources that can be used is the Dove Self-Esteem Project, which particularly targets young people as well and has real short snippets of information that parents and teachers and others, and even young people themselves can use. You can see the reading time here on some of these, 3 and 4 minutes, 7 minutes. Also, the Young Minds website, and particularly the section on body image and social media. So some of these resources already combine the two issues, the role of social media for body image. And so also, I'm going to the end, really rushing through this, but I wanted to share some tips that are based on practice, but also on research on how to use social media in a way that increases young people's body confidence versus, undermining it. So one very popular advice is to manage social media and what you see there by unfollowing accounts that, undermine your confidence in yourself, by following, on the other hand, accounts that promote body diversity and body positivity. However, when I started doing this myself, I noticed that even these body diversity accounts often actually use sexualized content and objectification to send a message, which research shows that in a way defeats the purpose. So being mindful still of, the kinds of images that even with a positive idea in mind, some of those images may still be actually counterproductive. But also stepping outside, this is my 9-minute timer, stepping outside of this whole idea of focusing on the body itself. So following accounts and that relate to your hobbies, interests, things that, young people want to do with their bodies rather than just focusing on those bodies themselves. And even using the settings of Instagram in terms of the ads that are shown to young people, because the ad content that actually Instagram pushes is also a very big part of the problem. And something which also relates to much advice that also has been given before is really trying to do more than just, stepping off of social media altogether more often and engaging in other activities that would boost body confidence. And I wanted to finish with some suggested profiles of, young women and young men on Instagram that really take a very consistent approach towards body diversity, body positivity, and are a good starting point of some of the people that could be followed. And this is me. Thank you.
Hi, Petra, you did an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you. I know it's such a short amount of time that each of our speakers has this evening, but I wanted to say just how much I appreciated, and I hope our audience that are with us this evening also have appreciated those really practical tips and all the signposting to the resources that you've shared that can really start unlocking those really important conversations, because I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this is very much about education and the way that we educate young people to explore all of their options and choices and increase that sense of agency and control in all of this subject matter is about showing them all of the different options that are out there, and those practical tips and accounts and all the resources will, I hope, help people really start engaging with young people and parents and carers and staff as well with all these different aspects of the conversation. There's so much to this topic, but you did a brilliant job in pulling all of that together. So thank you so much, Petra, for your time. And I'm now going to move to our next speaker, who is Grace McCabe. Grace is lead volunteer for Speak Out at Girl Guiding Scotland. And so Grace, if you are ready, then we'd love for you to show us your presentation. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen. So I'm Grace McCabe. I am 19 and I'm the lead volunteer for Speak Out at Girl Guiding Scotland. I'm also a second year law student, and if you look middle back, that is me during my time as a Speak Out champion. And I'm here today to talk to you about one of the campaigns which was created by my cohort when I was a Speak Out champion. Media Mindful was created with the aim of teaching girls and young women media literacy skills and to enable them to tackle gender stereotypes in the media. With those skills gained from following the Media Mindful Challenge Pack, we hope to inspire young women to challenge the negative portrayals of women in the media, which can fuel appearance-related bullying for reasons that I will get onto later. The media would love to have us believe that a woman can never be anything more than good-looking, or worse, not. The pushing of gender stereotypes by media outlets, such as the unattainable beauty standards that we all see on our screens every day, means that wider society can view girls and young women as objects rather than focusing on their abilities and skills. This objectification is not flattering or a compliment, though. We have seen time and time again that even when women are in high influential positions in their career, the media will reduce them to nothing but the way they look. Does anybody else recall the headline, "Never mind Brexit, who won Lexit," when Theresa May and Nicola Sturgeon met to the Brexit talks? This portrayal of women and girls in the media can limit their aspirations and passions. Too often, the media will disempower young women. Headlines like these send the message of, "Look girls, you can go all the distance and all I'm ever going to care about is the shape of your body." Even more so, if these young women spend so much time pursuing solutions to fix these flaws that the media tells them that they have, they'd be too exhausted to explore the depth of their passions and abilities, which is where their true value and beauty lies. It is constant, and girls and young women can and do internalise the belief that as a woman, it is your duty to look a certain way. I know myself as a 19-year-old girl, it's almost impossible to ignore. It has a real impact on girls' mental health, happiness, and self-confidence. The idea that there is only one acceptable way for a person to look can fuel these bullying behaviours, like the ostracisation or harassment of any person who doesn't or isn't able to conform to that beauty standard. These bullying behaviours occur in girls and young women between their peers too, as we all know it's so commonly said that hurt people hurt people. We hope that these media literacy skills we're aiming to teach our young members will empower them to see through these gender stereotypes that the media demands they must subscribe to. Youth organisations like Girl Guiding Scotland can do more to create safe spaces for open communication and understanding. Since we all spent so much time online during the pandemic, organisations have to understand that young members and service users are facing new challenges to those that we had the structures to deal with prior to 2020. As Media Mindful was created and launched in 2020, it has equipped young people with the skills they need to critically analyse the media they are consuming in the present day. Prejudice relating to someone's appearance is a growing issue with the rise of social media consumption. It's so easy to see a 15-second video and assume that is a person's full-time lifestyle and permanent appearance, when in fact we all know that social media is a highlight reel. Ending media stereotypes of how a woman should look will help challenge bullying based on prejudice. After completing our challenge pack, we know that girls and young women are feeling more empowered to be themselves and be respectful of others' appearances. When I was a Speak Out champion and during the creation of this campaign, we all sat to get down together, and this was in 2019, to talk about the issues that really mattered to us. This was new research at the time, and we wanted to talk about the statistics that stood out most to us, and here are some of the ones that really stood out that helped with the formation of Media Mindful. So since 2009, Girl Guiding has given girls and young women a platform to speak out on issues that matter to them through the Girls' Attitude Survey. The survey asked girls aged 7 to 21 how they feel about the pressures they face today and what these mean for their happiness and well-being. So I'm going to discuss some of those statistics and responses now. Firstly, from the 2020 Girls' Attitude Survey, 15% of girls aged 7 to 25 said they felt unhappy most of the time. In 2020, 32% of girls aged 11 to 21 wanted to change their appearance to feel more accepted and fit in. Only 38% of girls aged 17 to 21 felt that they could be themselves wherever they could go. And here's a quote that really stood out from us. "I just want to be myself." That's a girl aged 9 to 10 from the Girls' Attitude Survey 2020 rather. We want to see a future where the media treats girls and young women with equality and values and respects them. So the aim of Media Mindful can easily be condensed into 3 points. In partnership with Strathclyde University, us Speak Out champions created Media Mindful to empower and support young girls and young women too, challenge gender stereotypes and negative portrayals of women and girls in the media, equip them with skills to be critical about what they are reading, watching and creating, and to take action to ensure the media is more equal and fair. And that's what I will highlight. The key takeaway for anyone completing Media Mindful is we hope that they will be inspired to take action. I'm going to chat more about the policy calls now. So we want to see a future where the media treats girls and young women with equality and values and respects them. We want girls and young women to feel empowered. Our campaign called for social media platforms to urgently address the ways in which its users reinforce appearance pressures, for politicians and the public to call out gender stereotyping in the media when they see it, such as the "Never Mind Brexit, Who Wins the Lexit" campaign or headline. We also want the media to celebrate and promote a more diverse range of women that actually reflects today's true population. The week of action was really exciting to me. It's the first time I'd really got involved in campaigning, and that's what led me to take on the lead for this role now. So following the launch of our campaign in October 2020, our week of action took place in November. We asked everyone to take part in the Change the Headline Challenge to correct sexist headlines, not only the "Never Mind Brexit, Who Won Lexit," but even more so, like we saw Angelina Jolie hides figure in black baggy sack dress as she visits Syrian refugees to UNHCR Special Envoy Angelina Jolie met families displaced by the conflict in Syria. So we want to flip that onto her ability. As part of the campaign, we created a challenge pack of activities designed to equip girls with media literacy skills and to challenge gender stereotypes. Our campaign received huge support, which we are so grateful for. We had dozens of messages online and privately from elected MPs and MSPs, and we even had a motion in the Scottish Parliament to support our work. Media Mindful is part of Girl Guiding Scotland's wider mission to empower, inspire, and encourage women and girls to take on the world. We want all young people to be true to themselves and discover their full potential without fear of prejudice, exclusion, or bullying. We want to build an equal world where all girls can make a positive difference, be happy, be safe, and reach their potential. Together, we can end bullying in all its forms and ensure that youth, groups, schools, and communities are fully inclusive for all young people. Thank you so much for listening to me today. Now I'm going to play a video clip from Naomi McCabe, who is a current Speak Out champion and also very conveniently is my younger sister. She's going to be talking about what youth organisations could be doing more effectively to tackle prejudice-based bullying. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Naomi and I'm a Speak Out champion. From being a part of Girl Guiding Scotland, I do believe that there is a lot more that we, along with other youth organisations, could be doing to tackle bullying and support our young members, especially since we have such a wide platform that can be used effectively and needs to be taken advantage of. So, by implementing activities focused on treating others with respect and kindness from a young age, as children need to understand this skill properly to use it in later life, we can have the opportunity to support our young members. For example, during Girl Guiding Unit meetings, we could have "How would you feel in this situation" activities, and building around the phrase "treat others how you'd want to be treated" will help us to tackle bullying in young people.
Thank you, Grace and Naomi. What a power duo of two sisters. Amazing to hear from both of you. And just was so struck by what you said, Grace. I just want to be myself. And I think that's, you know, really important takeaway from that presentation about using the really amazing packs, like being media mindful packs. All of that work's been done by Girl Guiding Scotland, and that's again the purpose of the event today, is to showcase all of the work and tools that are already available for you to go away and have these conversations and do this kind of work with young people. So I really urge you to explore the Media Mindful Pack that Grace has talked us through, so that we can create those environments where every girl and woman can just be herself. So thank you very much, Grace. And I thought you made a brilliant link there between the importance of challenging negative stereotypes and how that can, without that, it can lead to bullying behaviour. So that 365 days a year, challenging those stereotypes to reduce bullying behaviour was, again, another important takeaway. So I'm going to move on now to our next speaker, who is Con Lafferty, and Con is works for NHS Lothian, and he's going to share his presentation around about the male perspective and his experiences of working with adult males who've experienced childhood bullying and how it's affected their body image. So thank you, Con.
Hi everybody. So yeah, I'm Con Lafferty and I manage the Neon team within the harm reduction team of the Spittal Street Centre. And one of the clinics that I operate is the Edinburgh Steroid Clinic. The Edinburgh Steroid Clinic is mainly used by heterosexual cisgendered males and at the moment as well a lot of transgender people too. Okay, so before I start, I think I would like to talk about how the male body image has changed over the years. So I've made a kind of timeline of what society through the media has portrayed as a normal body image. So you can see, I can't remember the name of this actor. I think we've got Sean Connery there, David Bowie, then we had Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then we've got like all these Love Island guys here as well. So the power of the media can't be understated, and young boys will always want to feel like they want to look like these men. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so when we, in Edinburgh at the moment, and it's around about a quarter of all people attending needle exchange services are those using image and performance enhancing drugs. And in the under 25 male age group, although they're used by men of various different ages, in the under 25 male age group, image and performance enhancing drugs are now the most commonly injected drug. And they believe about 1 million men, about 3% of the male population of the UK are actually using image and performance enhancing drugs. So we set up a clinic to work with these men, and what we expected to see was most of these stereotypes that you can see in the slide. However, if you could move to the next slide, the next again one. What we're actually seeing at the clinic is what's being seen in the images here. So when you see these really large men on the street that may look quite intimidating, or actually what we're seeing is on the inside as these images here. So social anxiety disorder is a big one, body dysmorphic disorder for sure, and depression and low self-esteem. And what I can say is one of the biggest causes for men to use image and performance enhancing drugs is childhood bullying and the trauma associated with that. So where people may be bullied for being overweight, when a man is, or when a boy is very slim, it can hold the same stigma as being overweight, and they may be bullied for that as well. and they can go on to develop body dysmorphic disorder, and no matter how big they get, they will still feel that they are really slim. They will suffer from low self-esteem, they will may suffer from depression, they may only socialize with people if they feel they look good enough or muscular enough that day, or in a way that they believe society will deem them to be looking normal. Could you move on to the next slide, please? So talking about male childhood bullying, or the young male childhood bullying, just like girls, boys too can be bullied for their body image. And I did mention that before often, for being too slim, or the more derogatory word being too skinny. Boys can also, bullying doesn't just happen from boys. We do hear a lot in the media, and I can't take that away. You know, I work with a lot of women in my other work who have experienced trauma at the hands of men. However, young boys can be bullied by young girls as well. You'll find, I don't know if any of you remember at school, often there was maybe one person, a few people in particular, that were bullied by many different people, and it wasn't just boys they would be bullied by, it would be the girls as well. And for a lot of these men that are using image and performance enhancing drugs, one of the reasons is they want to be accepted by the opposite sex, or they want to feel attractive to the opposite sex, as well as being accepted by their peers. We also have some gay men that attend the clinic, and they were bullied for being too feminine when they were younger, and they believe by using image and performance enhancing drugs that they start to look more masculine or appear more masculine, and they feel that it's the only way that they can then be accepted within the gay male population as well. Also, social media, as it's been mentioned many times before, plays a significant part in body image at the moment, and you just have to scroll through social media and you'll see lots of muscular men with their ripped six packs and their ripped chests, and most of these photos are photoshopped, and those bodies are almost unobtainable for all but a few people. And certainly they are not obtainable without using image and performance enhancing drugs. So social media certainly puts a big pressure on young boys and men to look a certain way to be accepted within society. Could you move on to the next slide, please? For people that were bullied as children, often that trauma will carry on into adulthood. And one of the main things that we experience at our clinic for sure is body dysmorphic disorder. And for some, it can affect their ability to have relationships with others. It can affect their ability to socialize with each other, and it really affects how they perceive themselves. And how I often explain it to people is it's like the opposite of anorexia for the men I see. So no matter how big they get, when they look at themselves in the mirror, they always think they're too small. Most people will use, or if they're using them as safely as possible, will use them in cycles. During that post-cycle period, they maybe gain 10 kilos while they were on a cycle, but when they come off the cycle, they may lose 5. And when they see that on the scales, it's traumatic for them, and they start to think they're too thin again. Confidence issues and low self-esteem is certainly a big issue for a lot of these men as well who had experienced childhood bullying. What I find with the men as well, particularly the ones that are in the 30+ age group, they were always taught to be more masculine, and they may not always speak as freely about these issues as some of the younger men that I am engaging with at the clinic. A lot of the men that we work with, apart from going to the gym, they may socially isolate because they do not feel that they look good enough to be accepted by society. I suppose the fact that I'm working on the steroid clinic as well is that those that have experienced childhood bullying may go on in adulthood to take extreme lengths to look in a manner in which they think society will accept them. So, but I suppose thinking of that from a female perspective, you would be thinking things like plastic surgery and things, but for men, it's often image and performance enhancing drugs that they will take and go to great lengths to try to get a muscular body. Those with the more extreme issues around childhood bullying and the body dysmorphic disorder may go on to use the more harmful steroids like trenbolone. They may inject insulin, growth hormone, and other drugs like that. For a lot of the men as well, I've mentioned this post-cycle period. So when people take steroids, testosterone's a really feel-good hormone for men. So say somebody was bullied a lot when they're younger because of the way they looked, and then all of a sudden they're getting compliments about their body, about how they look. When those compliments stop, and when they come off of steroids, suicidal ideation really is a big problem for a lot of them. And actually, we had a couple of men during COVID that committed suicide because they couldn't get to the gym. And they then go on to use steroids in an even more harmful way, in which they don't cycle and they actually use them continuously in a manner they call blasting and cruising, where they take a really large amount and then a really small amount, so they don't ever experience what we call the crash, where they have little to no testosterone in their system. And obviously substance misuse is a biggie as well. So could you move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so I did mention this actually at the start, I do apologise. So we know that anabolic and androgenic steroids are an issue because I said this at the start, so we can skip that slide as well. Okay, that's it, sorry, very short presentation. Maybe help cut some time down.
Con, thank you very much for sharing that presentation. And I think it's been a really interesting insight into an area that I think probably for a lot of people in the audience may not be a part of the world or an issue that we might be necessarily aware of. So I think it's been absolutely fascinating to get that insight this evening. And I think what it does, your presentation and its content really underlines the importance of prevention work, why we're putting all that effort and work into preventing appearance-related bullying in the first place, because what we're seeing in your presentation are the very, very real impacts that childhood bullying can have on later life, and really quite serious impacts. Some of those you've touched on. So I hope for the audience that are online tonight, that is a big takeaway, is just the importance of prevention to help minimize these harmful impacts, and the very, very valuable role that you all have to play in that prevention work. So thank you, Con. I'm going to pass to our next and final presenter this evening before we move to our panelist Q&A section. Last but by very much not least, I'd like to invite Susan Roth, who is Head of Education and Learning at Changing Faces, and Kaylin McLaughlin, who is campaigner at Changing Faces as well. So over to you, Susan and Kaylin.
Thank you very much. Well done. There's our presentation. So as I said, my name's Susan Ross, I'm Head of Education and Learning at Changing Faces. I'm going to talk about what we do, but I'm going to hand over to Kaylin, who's one of our Changing Faces campaigners. And on the panel later is David, who's one of our youth campaigners. Changing Faces is the UK's leading charity supporting people with a visible difference or disfigurement. Now, we describe visible difference as a scar, mark, or condition on your face or body that makes you look different. And this can be something you're born with or something that occurs during your life, and anyone can be affected at any point in their life. And so examples include skin conditions such as vitiligo, eczema, psoriasis, alopecia, or part of the body that's different, such as a birthmark, cleft lip, or having fewer fingers on one hand. Scars, burns, or changes to the body from an accident, act of self-harm, or an act of violence. And they can also occur because of an illness, a treatment, or operation, such as scars due to cancer treatment. Next slide, please. So Changing Faces provides support to adults, children, young people through our wellbeing service, which includes one-to-one counselling, online resources, workshops, and skin camouflage. And we also develop resources for schools, businesses, and healthcare professionals to help combat discrimination and bias towards people who have a visible difference or disfigurement. Another key focus of our work is calling out discrimination and campaigning for change. Next slide, please. In 2021, we carried out research, and we're going to carry out research this year as well, because it's important that we track changes over time. But we carried out research in 2021 with 1,400 children and young people across the UK, 600 of whom self-identified as having a visible difference. As we know, school can be a very tough environment for the young person, but it's even tougher for young people who have a visible difference. 37% have been stared at compared to 19% of their peers. They also are 3 times more likely to have repeated unkind messages about how they look put on social media. And they are twice as likely as to have their photograph of them taken without their consent posted to people in their school. For children and young people with a visible difference, 1/3 have had mean comments made about them and 1/4 have been bullied. This can leave a young person extremely anxious about starting a new school. Now, we all know that transitions can be very difficult for anyone, but going from primary school of say 300 to a secondary school of probably over 1,000 can be very intimidating for a child with a visible difference. They're meeting new people, they're in an environment they don't know, and they also have more opportunity for bullying, for instance, traveling to school. It isn't just overt bullying that children and young people with a visible difference receive, it's often ostracism as well. Unfortunately, only 1/4 of young people want to be friends with someone who looks different. I'm just going to repeat that. Only 25% of young people want to be friends with someone who looks different. 20% of young people admit to feeling uncomfortable and walking away from someone who looks different. And 25% have said they pointed at someone who looks different. All this can make a young person with a visible difference feel isolated, ignored, lonely, ostracized, and feelings of anxiety and depression because of that. So when it comes to support, children and young people with a visible difference look to friends before family, but often because they don't want to upset their parents. However, when it comes to their peers, they're much more likely to turn to teachers for support. Now, that's really important for this audience because often a child or a young person will go to their teacher because potentially they don't have anyone within their peer group, within their class that they can turn to for support. Our website has lots of resources around bullying specific related to visible difference. Plus, there's also age-appropriate resources on how to support pupils with a visible difference in their learning to make sure that they achieve. As you've seen, children and young people with a visible difference are more likely to be bullied, ostracised, and experience sadness and anxiety than their peers. To help combat this, we've launched a series of resources for teachers called A World of Difference. And I'm very pleased to say that they're available both on our own website, but also on the Education Scotland Hub, and they've been improved by Education Scotland. The resources help support teachers to create inclusive classrooms where every child is included and given the opportunity to succeed. It's aimed at every school and classroom and not intended to be used with students who have visible difference. The classroom resources focus on stereotypes of visible difference and how they're depicted in the media. We've spoken a lot today about the media. However, baddies is often used as a shorthand for evil, disfigurement is often used as a shorthand for evil, bad characters. And scars and marks are a shorthand for being the baddie, being the evil one, being the one that's going to do the bad thing. The resource includes resources to give students a way to discuss visible difference and how unfair stereotypes can impact individuals. There are also resources for trainee and qualified teachers, which include discussions of how teachers own potential unconscious bias in relation to visible difference. This can include low expectation from the teacher, the inevitability of bullying for a child who looks different, as well as overcompensating or being overprotective towards children or young people who has a visible difference or disfigurement. These resources support teachers to examine their own ways of teaching and strategies around inclusion and visible difference. Now, I've given you lots of data, I've given you lots of research, I've talked about our resources, but I think it's really important to hear from actual people who've experienced bullying because of their visible difference. So I'm really, really pleased that Kaylin is with us, who's going to spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about her experience of bullying and having a visible difference. So I'm going to hand you over to Kaylin.
Hi everybody, I'm Kaylin, and as Susan said, I'm just going to talk a bit about my experience with bullying. So when I was younger, I didn't actually realise that I looked different until I started primary school, and my first memory of an incident is when I was walking to school one day and I shouted on my friend and she just turned her back to me, and when I walked into the school gates I asked her why she didn't talk to me, and she said that another pupil had told her that if she was my friend that she would look like me. And so that was my first experience with bullying. Throughout primary school it was okay, and then when I went to high school, that's when the big changes happened, because I was never in a school with people older than me, younger than me. When you're a teenager, the pressures are even worse. So it did get a bit worse when I went to high school. I did try and tell teachers, but they didn't really do anything to try and stop it. From my perspective, all I seen was people getting spoke to, but there was never any real changes done about it, and it just continued. And that eventually led to me, I didn't go out, I would only go to school. I lost a lot of my friends because I wouldn't go out, and they didn't understand why I wouldn't come out. They just thought I was being weird. But I generally didn't like going out if I didn't know who was going to be there. I'm still the same, like that's had a knock-on effect. I'm now 27 and I still don't really go places if there's going to be people that I don't know there, because I just don't like the feeling of walking into a room and people I don't know people. I'm always thinking of what they think, they're going to judge me. So I think, oh, my phone's sliding, sorry. So I really think that this topic needs to be spoken about more. I mean, I remember Respect Me and stuff coming into my school when I was younger, but this was never anything that was focused on. So I think it's good. I now have a 4-year-old who's about to go to school in August. I just want her future to be better and her time at school to be better than mine was. I hope you found my short talk helpful and allow you to relate or understand how it affects real people in real life that have a visible difference. And I'd pass you back to Susan now. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kaylin. I know it can be really difficult for anybody to talk about experiences that are uncomfortable, sad, bullying, that sort of thing. So really, thank you so much for your honesty and your bravery to talk about what's happened to you. So I think what Kaylin said and what Changing Faces tries to do is about education. It's about inclusivity. It's about understanding what visible difference is. And we give people the language to talk about visible difference, because I think that's often what we find is that teachers don't know how to address that issue. They don't know how to talk about it. And so it's kind of ignored. Things like gender, race, those sorts of, things are talked about a lot currently, and thank God they are. But I think visible difference is something that isn't. And I think, what we're trying to do is to raise the profile around visible difference and appearance. And so that's why we're so happy to be part of this, this session today. And please do go to our website for the teachers out there and use our resources. Thank you very much.
Susan and Kaylin, thank you so much for rounding off all the presentations this evening with such an informative and thought-provoking session about just about visible difference. Kaylin, I absolutely salute your bravery in being able to talk about your experiences. And again, like Con's presentation, it really does underline everybody the difference that good inclusion and diversity work can really make on minimising harmful impacts. I think Kaylin summed it up when she said that she really wished that those resources had been around when she was younger at school, and that teachers had been better informed. So those resources are now created, Changing Faces have made them, and I totally encourage you to go and check out those World of Difference resources. And absolutely, the other thing I just wanted to point out is just really the importance of ourselves as adults examining our own unconscious bias towards different people's identities, such as visible difference, because our own reactions and responses can get in the way of giving children and young people a good response. So just want to finish on that, because I know that that's something that's dear to Susan's heart as well, which is about that self-reflection, self-awareness, about how we respond to others and aspects of their appearance and difference. So thank you, both of you. And I know we have got a little bit of time to be making up at this point. So we are going to do our very, very best to get through as many questions as we can. I'm very conscious, though, that the audience have been listening very diligently for quite some time. And so I'd quite like to involve you at this point and get you to do a little bit of reflection on the absolutely brilliant content that we've heard from our speakers this evening, and to be thinking about how you might put into place some of the things that have been suggested and what has really chimed with you and is maybe a takeaway for you. So Claire is going to share a Slido question with us. And that will lead us, we won't spend too much time on this, but I would really love to hear what your experiences have been. So first question is, in your role, have you encountered bullying related to appearance? Yes or no? So that's great. I can see the results coming up here in live time, so mainly yes. So obviously this is an issue that that is prevalent in many people's lives or job roles that are on the call. So the next question that I want to move to is the question around about reflecting on all you've heard from our speakers today. Is tell us about a key takeaway for you. So we're going to pop up a word cloud. If you wouldn't mind, one or two words that that really sum up some takeaways for you from all of our fantastic speakers who have given up their time to share their expertise and work with us. So, okay, so inclusion, gender, kindness, understanding, raising awareness, the impact on young males, acceptance, diversity, education, lots of education, absolutely, conversation, empowerment, some brilliant words coming up here. And I'm really, again, very grateful for you for participating with the Slido and sharing your ideas. It's great. Although we can't see you, it's nice to know that you're in the room with us using the Slido. Okay, so I'm going to leave that just now. That's given us a little snapshot of the impacts that the speakers have had on you this evening. And I'm now going to hand over to, we're going to skip the break. So sorry about that, because we are running behind this evening because of the technical break. But I'm sure you'll want us not to miss out on our panelists and speakers who are still with us. Safia is our training officer with a speciality in equalities and inclusion. So I'm going to hand over to Safia now, and she'll lead us into the Q&A. Thank you, Safia.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Lisa. After all the months of leading the design and development of Respect Me's Changemaker series alongside Lisa, it's been an absolute delight to see so many changemakers attend this evening. So I wanted to briefly talk a little bit about why I was interested in leading the Changemaker series, and also why celebrating difference is vital to preventing bullying. As regards in my capacity as Respect Me's training officer specialising in equalities and inclusion, I felt really passionate to lead this series for the following reasons. as a British Asian woman myself who is really proud of our cultural heritage and her difference, I could really relate firsthand to what children and young people were sharing with us about their experiences of being different and encountering prejudice. Through this new series, I wanted to be part of reaching those working with and caring for children and young people across Scotland to share the importance of respect and fairness for all, that we all have similarities and differences. We are each completely unique, and that is something to be really proud of and celebrated. I also wanted to be part of inspiring future change makers, that their understanding in terms of how we can do effective diversity and inclusion work, and how this helps to address negative attitudes towards difference, and in turn promote robust anti-bullying practice. Essentially, what unites us helps us build empathy and understanding, and we then learn to accept others for who they are, regardless of their identity or their appearance. One school in Edinburgh who has really excelled at celebrating diversity is Dean Park Primary School, led by head teacher Mrs. Kerr. As a whole school community, the pupils, the teachers, the parent council, Dean Park Primary School devised a Diversity Week initiative covering a breadth of protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010 to promote anti-bullying, anti-racism and anti-prejudice over 3 years. The initiative really helped the school re-secure their gold status Rights Respecting School Award, and they received recognition at UNICEF's National Conference as well. So as you'll see from the slide, I put a screenshot there from our website where you'll find Dean Park Primary School's case study. It's also included in our resource pack as well, so you can read this excellent example of change-making practice in more detail. And we really hope that Dean Park Primary School's example inspires you all to replicate what they've done to achieve transformational change. So next, I'd like to introduce you all to an inspirational young woman, Eva Drummond, from Respect Means Youth Action Group. She's designed a powerful and really impressive animation. Now, before we show you the film, I'd like, if possible, Eva to say a few words about the impetus for her film, Be You, and about her time on YAG. So I'd like now to introduce you to Eva.
Hello, I'm Eva and I'm 15 and I'm part of Respect Means Youth Action Group. The Youth Action Group helped to co-design the new Anti-Bullying Week campaign, Listen Up, Respect Our Rights. And during Anti-Bullying Week, for all the activities we made, I made a short animation that has themes of body image and exclusion. I joined the Youth Action Group because I had a really negative experience with bullying when I was in primary school, and I wanted to use that experience to help make change and make things better for others. And now I'm here, which is kind of exciting. So the key messages for my animation were that everyone's different and you don't always have to fit in with the people around you, and that your body is special to you and you don't have to look like everybody else. You don't have to fit in with like society's body norms and etc. And I wanted the animation to help people feel more comfortable with the way they looked, and to know that obviously you don't have to fit in and that your body is that way for a reason. I wanted to create an animation that showed those things, but in a innocent way. So I've designed little characters that are all different shapes, so it's an easy watch. Thank you.
Fantastic. So if we could now show Eva's video clip, that would be great. I must say, thank you so much, Eva, for that, for your animation there. I'm sure you'll all agree that Eva's animation is hugely moving and impressive and conveys in a really accessible way how to start conversations in youth settings about really valuing difference and inclusion. Okay, so moving on to our next segment, I have the privilege of hosting Respect News. Invited questions in advance from our audience based across Scotland, our youth forums, our parent focus groups, and our teacher surveys, and we collated relevant and frequently asked questions on the topical issues that you raised to pose directly to our special panel of subject matter experts. So in addition to the keynote speakers whom you've met in part one, I'm delighted to introduce you to our additional guest panelists today, and they are Dr. Fiona Duffy, who is the consultant clinical psychologist and a senior lecturer at Edinburgh University, specialising in eating disorders and in children and young people. Do say hello, Fiona. Next we have Katie. Thank you. Next we have Katie Horsburgh, who is the Policy and Practice Officer from Zero Tolerance. Would you like to say hello, Katie?
Hi, everyone.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Leanne Maguire. And Leanne is the chairperson of Glasgow City Parents Group. Leanne, would you like to say hello too?
Evening, everyone.
Next, we have David Leach. He is the team leader of Scottish Government's Children and Young People's Mental Health Improvement Team. Again, David, please say hello.
Good evening, everyone. Hi.
Fantastic, that's great. Now I'm going to switch the order of our questions due to the technical issues that we experienced earlier. So I'm going to start with question to Julie Cameron, question 6. So I'm going to take you to that slide right now. So the question is, how do we help children and young people explore different concepts and ideals of beauty, body image and appearance that exist across cultures and faiths and challenge negative stereotypes? So over to you, Julie.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Safia. I mean, I think you've just given some lovely examples right there, haven't you, in terms of some of the work that Eva and others have been doing. So, I mean, I think I tried to touch on this at the start. This is a collective effort. There's no one thing that's going to change how we create an environment where good body image can foster and also appearance-based bullying reduces. So there's no one thing. But I do, and I know it's a repeat of what many other people have said, I do think it's really important that we do start to think about education and enabling young people spaces to really explore some of these difficult concepts and different ideas. So for instance, we absolutely know that different faiths and cultures do have different ideals around beauty and different concepts of beauty. Research tells us that in terms of what that is, and that goes beyond weight and shape into things like skin tone and hair texture and facial features and a whole swathe of other things. But the most important thing that I guess that we have to start being quite innovative in how we engage with young people around these issues and giving them space to talk. And that's, of course, as well as the wider changes that need to go on at a more societal level that touches on what Petra was saying about just having more diversity out there now and really pressing things like our government so that if they're doing a campaign, actually they should be equality checking their campaigns to make sure that they're very diverse and kind of, so there's a whole swathe of things that we can do. And I'm kind of just picking on the government because David's here, but now there's other public agencies that we can think of. As well as obviously just continuing that pressure on things like the beauty and other industries who have huge marketing that impact on all of us and perhaps isn't diverse as we would like.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was great. And I'm going to take you to the next question, which is, how do you address what is an multi-generational culture of appearance-based bullying?
Well, the first thing I would say here is by not blaming. So I don't think it's to anyone's interest to make parents or grandparents or anyone else in the lives of young people feel blame about what they do and the impact it can have. But again, education is key here. And when part of the advisory group, it was a huge gap, I have to say, around parents and carers and the information flow to them about how what they say matters and how what they do matters. But we have to make sure that when we're getting across these messages, that we do it in a way that doesn't blame. Otherwise, people become defensive and they become entrenched potentially in the behaviours that they have. So it's about helping people recognise and understand what they say matters. It has an impact, even if there's no intention to hurt people's feelings. So it's not about intent, it's about the impact that it has. And then I think we have to get our heads together to really think, how can we innovate around this? And I have to say the body positive movement, in terms of the numbers that they reach around things like podcasts and just quite interesting engagement, I think we've got quite a bit to learn from there.
That's so interesting to hear, Julie. Thank you so much. So next, how can parents and carers support their child if they recognise their child's experience of appearance-related bullying as a microaggression? So over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Safia, and thanks for rejigging your question order there. So just in case anyone who's watching tonight isn't aware of the term microaggression or what it is, a microaggression is often subtle comment or action that negatively targets marginalised groups or individuals, and it can be intentional or accidental, and sometimes people who engage in microaggressions might not even intend harm, but that doesn't mean to say they're any less hurtful. So regardless, microaggressions can be very hurtful to the people that experience them. So how do we approach that situation as a parent, which was the question? So my advice would be, firstly, talk it through with your young person. You might need to explain to them what a microaggression is and how they recognise it if they don't already. Parents and carers can really help their children recognise what microaggressions are and that they're never acceptable. My advice would be, if you feel that your child is confident enough to do this, to suggest that they challenge the microaggression in a non-threatening way. So either by saying, can you please stop doing that? I don't like it. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It's annoying. Otherwise, if they don't feel confident enough to do this, then I would be asking them to speak to an adult, like a teacher or a parent, somebody that might be able to diffuse the situation for them. My main advice would be not to keep quiet and to continue to feel upset about it, because like I've already mentioned, sometimes those who, the people who are perpetrating the microaggression don't always realise that they are upsetting, and sometimes it can be seen as banter. And as a parent of a child experiencing this behaviour, we also need to help build our child's confidence in their own appearance. So I'm just going to quickly give you an example. My daughter is Nigerian, Scottish, biracial. And at times she's very self-conscious about her natural afro hair, because she always gets comments on it when she wears it out, and she gets random strangers touching her hair without consent. So to help build her confidence through the years, I've had to buy books to teach her to love her hair. I taught myself how to care for her hair so that I was able to make hair night fun, allowing her to pick different hairstyles and accessories while reinforcing the message that her hair is one of the things that I love most about her. And this is where representation is so powerful in a child's life. If your child only ever see characters in books, TVs and movies that don't look like them, they often then doubt their own appearance.
Thank you so much, Leanne. That was, again, such an insightful answer, and particularly from the perspective of a parent. So the next question is, why does gender matter when it comes to addressing bullying related to appearance? So over to you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Safia. Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Policy and Practice Officer for Children and Young People at Zero Tolerance. At Zero Tolerance, we work on primary prevention of men's violence against women and girls. Now, obviously, bullying is distinct from violence against women and girls, and we definitely don't want to conflate the two, but gendered bullying definitely plays a role in creating an environment that allows violence against women and girls to thrive, and they share the root cause of gender inequality. I think listening to all the presentations today, it was really apparent to me how gender does matter when we're considering appearance-based bullying. So if we look at the pressures outlined on boys to be big and strong, that all relates to ideas of masculinity. And then pressures on girls to be small, to not take up space, to be white and middle class presenting as well, are all related to ideas of prettiness and femininity. Even the sort of hyper focus that Grace was talking about on girls' appearances in general can lead many of them to have even greater experiences of image-based bullying and insecurity around their bodies. What this means for us is that when we're tackling bullying around image, but also bullying of any kind, we need to think about the role of gender in causing the bullying and the role of gender in how we tackle it. There's lots of different ways to embed gender equality in your everyday practice as a practitioner working with children and young people. And like one of the speakers was saying earlier, the role of modeling is really, really important, and our own behaviour as adults in showing children and young people how to live out a gender equal society. There's lots of things you can do around language, so addressing children and young people with gender neutral language rather than girls and boys, actively encouraging children and young people to try out different activities outside of their particular gender stereotype. So it's not always treating them the same. Sometimes girls might need extra encouragement to try certain things, and boys might need extra encouragement to try other things. Reviewing the policies and practices and their implementation within the particular setting that we're working within with a gender lens to check that they're having the same impact on children and young people of all genders within our settings. Treating young people with respect and really putting UNCRC into practice, seeing them as people, encouraging them to build empathy and see each other as people, regardless of gender. And also teaching explicitly about gender and gender inequality. All these things can add up to help create that gender equal environment. And if we tackle that root cause, it'll help prevent image-based bullying that is sort of happening along gendered lines, as well as things like violence against women and girls. If you're interested in how to embed gender equality in your practice as a practitioner, Zero Tolerance offers training called Under Pressure, which is all about gender, how children and young people relate to each other, abuse, violence, all that kind of thing. So if you're interested, you can look on our website for some more information. I'm going to have to run away now because I've got another meeting, but thank you so much for having me. It's been a really good event.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Katie. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm next going to move on to question 1. So I'm going to fly through my slides here. And this is for Fiona. So Fiona, the question is, what does the research show about the connection between bullying and eating disorders? Over to you, Fiona. Thank you.
So I suppose, first of all, it's important to say that eating disorders are caused by lots of different complex factors. So about 40 to 60% will be genetic, just to start with. It also means 40 to 60% is not genetic, so that's incredibly important. So we know that about in individuals who have experienced an eating disorder, they're 2 to 3 times more likely to have reported experiencing bullying just prior to the onset of their eating disorder than healthy controls. And really interestingly, individuals who present more with what we call binge purge subtype eating disorders, so that's bulimia nervosa or binge eating disorder, are more likely to experience higher levels of bullying than individuals with more restrictive eating disorders, so for example, anorexia. So I suppose, and also equally really interestingly, there's been lots of discussions around social media today, but really interestingly, by heart, the highest proportion of bullying individuals with eating disorders experience is actually verbal bullying. So that's kind of really important context as well. I suppose what we're not clear about though is whether or not bullying is a risk factor for developing an eating disorder or a risk factor for developing mental health difficulties in general. And also whether or not we know that body image is a risk factor for eating disorders, body image difficulties. So whether or not there's a mechanism there with regards to bullying creating body image difficulties due to a focus, for example, on appearance-based bullying and teasing, or just feeling an increase of kind of interpersonal relationship difficulties and therefore more social comparisons, and whether that then link to body image is then also linked to eating disorders. I suppose what I would say though is that we spend huge amounts of money thinking about increased awareness, which is great in terms of around eating disorders and picking up signs and symptoms. But if we're actually going to focus on preventing eating disorders, definitely one of the most evidence-based recommendations that we've got is actually thinking about really robust anti-bullying campaigns in schools, which have to have some kind of appearance focus in there as well, to be able to think about this from a more preventative angle.
Wow, so interesting, Fiona. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, and your specialist knowledge with us today. So next, I'm going to go to David. Hang on, that's question 8. So bear with me 1 second. So, David, over to you. I'm going to read out the question first. So what is Scottish Government doing to support young people with body image and its impact on their mental health and well-being, and the wider association with social media and screen time? And the secondary question is, how can people link with the work that Scottish Government is carrying forward to help you achieve your objectives? So I'm sure everyone will be really delighted to hear your answers today. So over to you, David. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Safia. A nice straightforward question there. Not a difficult one at all for me to get into. So I think first off, I would say this is an exceptionally important area for Scottish Government and for the Mental Health Directorate within Scottish Government. Partly because we obviously compile a significant amount of research on the factors that are affecting people's mental health and well-being, and as we've spoken about through this event, we've undertaken things like the Body Image Advisory Group, where we've had specific recommendations that are made to us about things that we need to do and changes that we need to make things better for the population and address some of the issues around about body image, social media, screen time, but also because we constantly listen to what families, young people, and the wider population are telling us are the issues that they want more advice on, or they want more support on, or are concerning them. And repeatedly, issues around about body image, issues around about social media, and screen time and the effects of those things on people's mental health and well-being come up. They're some of the top issues that we hear about, that people tell us about, that they want more support for when we ask them. So it's something that we're focused on, we take extremely seriously. Over the last few years, we have put investment and resource into developing websites like the Mind Your Time website that we developed with the Scottish Youth Parliament, that gives a certain amount of advice on screen time, social media use. It touches a little bit on wider body image and the effects of that on children and young people. We've also got some information on the Parent Club website for parents and carers around about conversations around about body image and social media and screen time use, and the importance of having some of those conversations with children and young people. And we've worked through our package of relationship resources and education for schools around about making sure there are materials there for schools to have these conversations with children and young people, and they can access them nationally. I think one of the things that we've realised over the last few months is we need to increase all of that. We need to put more focus into all of those areas, and increase the resources that are there and the support that's there. So over the next few months, we'll be looking at those 3 things, the information available to parents and carers, the information available online for children and young people directly, and the information that's available to schools and resources available to schools to help have these conversations with children and young people. So it's something that we're working on and we're developing. It's something we've already developed, but we would very much welcome any input or advice or information from any of the people that have joined today around about things that we could use to be part of those conversations, to be part of increasing that information, advice, to help us to develop those things, because we don't want to reinvent a whole load of material that's actually already been produced and that people have put a lot of time and effort into. What we would rather do is work with people in partnership to try and highlight those on a national basis and put some resource into making sure they're accessible across the country. So They're really important issues to us. We are already doing a certain amount to support those areas, but we would like to do more, and we would very much welcome anybody getting in touch with Scottish Government directly to do that. I know I've given you, Safia, my email address and my colleague's email address. I'm happy for that to be passed out to the group as well afterwards, and to anybody that's here, so that they can get in contact with us directly and have those conversations with us. And we'd be more than happy to have a discussion with anybody on those things. One of the things I will say, just as a bit of a health warning on that, is obviously we sit within the Mental Health Directorate of Scottish Government. We understand that these topics cover much more than just mental health and well-being, and that, you know, issues around about bullying and around about online safety cover a number of policy areas. So there are certain things that we will focus on directly about the well-being impacts and the mental health impacts of these things that we can cover off. But we might also have to bring some colleagues in from other areas as well, where they've got a specific focus on some of the other aspects and elements of it. But more than happy to have any of those conversations with anybody who wants to get in touch with us directly. And thanks very much for allowing us to be part of the session tonight.
That was so useful, David. Thank you so much for your time and sharing, you know, your answers with everyone, as I'm sure they will be, you know, really appreciated by everyone on the call today.
Now, we also invited a perspective from organisation Amina. They're an organisation that empowers women and girls from Muslim and Black and minority ethnic communities. As an organisation, they work across multiple community groups and interact with women and girls across many different religions, cultures and languages. They couldn't attend this evening, but they very kindly sent us their answer to read out on their behalf. The question was, how do we help children and young people explore different concepts and ideals of beauty, body image and appearance that exist across cultures and faiths and challenge negative stereotypes? So Amina's answer is as follows. Amina would advise using focus groups led by young people, both single-sexed and mixed, to encourage young people to talk about how they feel about body image, beauty and appearance. It is important to provide the correct safe space setting to encourage open conversation. After groups have discussed issues in the single-sex environment, you can bring groups of boys and girls together to discuss the issues as a whole and hear from one another's perspective. Some things that could be discussed in relation to things such as the impact of social media and unrealistic modern beauty expectations, Photoshop and photo editing tools, beauty as an abstract concept. We all have our individual perceptions of beauty and an ideal body image. Provide them with facts and information about the beauty industry. Young people should be encouraged to think critically, i.e., who creates the beauty standards, who profits from people buying into those standards. Social media stars are sponsored by the beauty industry or sell their own products. It is the interest of the beauty industry to keep consumers feeling like they're not beautiful enough. Things to consider. It is important to have young people involved that represent a mix of different identities, cultures, religions, genders, etc. The discussion to flow and for the young people to hear about beauty and what the ideals are across all cultures. Young people could be given examples of different beauty standards from across the globe, the origins of them and any cultural or religious significance they may represent. Overall, it is important to give the message that everybody is beautiful. We all have our individual definition of beauty, but there is also beauty within each and every one of us. Our young people are our future. How they feel about their bodies will change over time, but emphasis should be placed upon young people developing a healthy body image through diet and exercise where possible. Thank you so much, Amina, for sending us your answer to that question. And now we'll move on.
So in the interest of time, I am going to bring my session to a close and hand you back to Lisa to do a plenary and just take you on a whistle-stop tour of our calls to action. So thank you everyone. I'm going to hand you back to Lisa.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I'm conscious that there's still quite a number of people on the call this evening, and so I'm grateful that you've stayed with us even though we did go over. So I think all it remains for me to do is to share, as Safia said, we have put together some slides that some calls to action rather, that we want to share with you. And so if you can just bear with me while I bring my presentation back up, and so I can share what these calls to action are with you. There are 7 calls to action that we would like to draw your attention to before we finish this evening, and many of the calls to action in relation to appearance-related bullying and preventing it and responding to it very much relate to the points very well made this evening by our guest speakers. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but I'm just going to give you an overview. First action that we want you to do is to create a culture of body acceptance and body confidence to prevent appearance-related bullying. We want you to explain to children and young people the relationships that exist between appearance-related bullying and the connection with other protected characteristics, so intersectionality. We want you to design safe spaces for all children and young people where they feel accepted in their own body and feel safe to report appearance-related bullying. We want you to lead conversations with children and young people to explore negative body imaging and stereotypes that we know can contribute to bullying behaviour. Importantly, we want you today, we hope you've taken a lot of inspiration and practical tools. We want you to inspire and support children and young people to lead their own local campaigns. Youth-led voice and young people leading on anti-bullying work is incredibly important. We know that young people respond very well to other young people sharing anti-bullying messages, not just from adults. Action point number 6 is to galvanise parents and carers in all of this. Julie Cameron talked about the importance of engaging parents and carers and challenging some of that intergenerational stereotyping about body image and body acceptance. And finally, I think we've seen it on Slido tonight, time after time, people are taking away that importance of education and conversation. And so we've curated for you, and we're going to be releasing it over the coming days, a digital resource pack. So please look out in your emails. Anybody that's attended this evening will receive their digital resource pack when it's finally been released. So those are our 7 calls to action. I am going to finish tonight by acknowledging all of our guest speakers. We couldn't have put on this event without you giving up your time. I know we've got a little bit extra, but thanks for bearing with us. And the other thing I'd like to acknowledge is, and often goes unseen in events like this, the wider Respect Me team that have worked tirelessly to pull tonight together. It's been a complete team effort, and I want to acknowledge all of my colleagues that have supported with the design, the communications, and all the administration that's gone into this evening. So thank you for all of your support. And if you would like to post and share about your experience tonight, we're using hashtag Team Changemaker. And finally, if you would like to get in touch with us and you've been really inspired and you're going to go away and do all this fantastic work and putting your calls to action into place, let us know what you're doing in your settings. You can get in touch with us at inquire@respectme.org.uk. We're fully funded by Scottish Government to deliver this work. It's really important that we keep connecting with all of our stakeholders. So keep connected, keep sharing, and we're going to pop into the chat box a quick SurveyMonkey evaluation so you can tell us about your experience of this very first Changemaker national conversation. So we'll leave that open for a few moments to allow you time to do that. I just wish you all a very lovely evening. Thanks for your participation, everybody. Thanks for listening, and good luck with all of your anti-bullying policy, practice, prevention and responding. So night, everybody.